So every single Tuesday, we interview LSU football players, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, and generally speaking, we're not aware of who we're going to get. They are very, very accommodating, and if there's somebody that you feel like you need to talk to, they will certainly take requests. They're not going to overload these guys with 4, 5, 6 visits in a row. You don't get Nussmeier every week. You don't get Whit Weeks every week. So they try to lighten the load on those guys, but they're accommodating. But generally speaking, I show up on Tuesday with no idea what 4 guys we're going to talk to. And last night, we showed up, and we found out Garrett Nussmeier was on the docket. Haven't talked to him in about a month. And I'll tell you this. Garrett Nussmeier is, generally speaking, a boring interview. That's not an indictment of him personally at all. He's a boring interview because he is intentionally a boring interview. He grew up in a coach's household. He understands the role of the media. He knows that his job is to make sure that he is propping up his players, not talk about himself, prop up the other team, avoid controversy, head down. And he does that, and that is perfectly within his purview. He can do that if he wants to, but I understand it. So I know when Garrett comes, you're probably not going to get a lot of fireworks. Now, he will absolutely cordially answer your questions, at times give it specific thought. And if you want to hear about a player on LSU's team, Garrett will give you a great answer. I'm going to write about P.J. Woodland later this week, and Garrett gave a great answer about P.J. Woodland. But you start talking about, rivalry matchups or whether or not he's hurt or if he needs to do this, like he's not going to go into deep water more often than not in front of a microphone. And so that's why I thought his tone yesterday and his message yesterday was very enlightening, because I did think he gave us some actual information to chew on. Some of it was indirect, and you'll hear it, but I thought that he gave us a little something to chew on here. So this first bite was in response to a reporter asking Garrett about Brian Kelly's comment on Monday that he played a little bit more free, played a little bit more swagger. Here's Garrett's response to Brian Kelly saying that.
Yeah, I think just for one, just everything that I was kind of going through in the first couple of weeks was obviously very frustrating. I think I let it get to me a little bit, a feeling of helplessness at times, a lot of frustration. And so, now just having fun playing football, and trying to get back to that, just being me and playing the game that I love to play. And so I think I lost that for a minute there in frustration. And so, Coach challenged me with that to be myself and to bring that swagger back. So, I'm just going to continue to try and keep doing that.
So there he doesn't say, yes, I was hurt, right? He's not going to give you that soundbite, but he says, with everything that was going on earlier in the season. We know what was going on early in the season. Garrett was hurt. And he said it frustrated him. And that's a human reaction to a year that you came back for with massive expectation, where you're on Heisman Trophy odds lists and your team is mentioned with teams that compete for a national championship, and you're given the number 18 and you're sent to SEC Media Days to represent the team. And this is what you've worked your entire life for, to play quarterback at LSU one more year. And then you get hurt. That's frustrating. That is frustrating. And he said as much. Now, because he began that quote with everything that was going on, there was a natural follow-up with so you want to talk about your health, and here's what he said.
I think it's pretty obvious kind of what has gone on. I don't want to go into it directly. I'll say football, you're never truly fully healthy. It's a sport that you have to play when you're banged up. Obviously it's been frustrating, but as I said, it's football. You got to play through bangs and bruises. I have no excuses. And so I'm just looking forward to continuing to try and get better and finish the year off the right way.
So he's not going to talk about it, but he talked about it. And this is going to be the $1 million question as we sit here, and my job is to analyze the football team, right? And I try to be as truthful with y'all, as objective with y'all as I possibly can. You know where my rooting interest lies. I'm never going to run from that. I'm never going to hide from that. But I don't believe that it completely blinds my ability to analyze the football team. I can analyze the things that I know about. I know what LSU's running game has looked like for a month and a half. I know what LSU's defense has looked like for a month and a half. I now know how Brian Kelly kind of manages a team day to day and what his decisions look like in a game. I cannot know how Garrett Nussmeier felt at Clemson, how he felt in Oxford, how he feels today, how he's going to feel Saturday, what he'll feel like in November. I have no way of knowing that. And I can't know how many throws he's made have been affected by this injury and how many have not. So it's wasted energy for me to basically try to speculate on that. We just don't know. But we can go off what he's saying and then try our best with what you see on the field. And what you saw early in the season was floating deep balls and the inability to stretch the field and some kind of throws without a lot of zip and a quarterback that's not practicing, and it matters. So how much did the bye week and the rest help?
Yeah, it helped a lot for me. Being able to get a quick rest, and so. But as I said before, just it's football. You got to play banged up, and so no matter what the situation is, I'll go out there and give them all.
And we don't doubt that. The guy's tough. The guy wants to fight. He wants to play. We've seen him play through this injury early in the season. We saw him return from injury last year against Oklahoma and give it his best shot and hit some deep balls late in that game to Chris Hilton. He's tough. And he's going to play through this, and you hope that it continues to get better and better and better. And he thought, in talking to him yesterday, that the offense got better over the bye week pre-South Carolina. And he talked about some lessons that they learned in that game on Saturday night.
For us, coming off the field, it was a good lesson. I think we completely dominated the game. We dominated the line of scrimmage. We threw the ball at will. We were running the ball at will, and we messed it up on ourselves 3 times inside the 10, and we don't score. In either of those opportunities. So we know how good we played. We know what we believe the score should have looked like. We know all this and that. And so at the end of the day, if we would have executed the small things and we would have put up those 3 scores or whatever, and the score would look totally different, there would have been a totally different conversation this week from the media, from everybody. It would have looked like a totally different thing. And so we know that as a unit, and so it's a great learning lesson for us and how important it truly is, especially in big SEC games to finish.
I'm sensing some confidence from that. I was standing right there when he said it, and I just sense some confidence. You heard him say, we dominated the game. And I would suggest that's probably right. You ran for 160, which is way better than you've done at any point this year. You moved the ball essentially at will. I'm with you on that. Now, if you are in Columbia, South Carolina doing radio this week, you're talking about how the defense showed up when it had to and got a fumble at the 3-inch line and got a pick at the 1-yard line and stoned LSU at the goal line right there at the end to force the field goal. That's the way you're going to frame that. And if you're in Baton Rouge doing the radio, well, they just screw. And the truth of the matter is that those situations are all different. Juwan Johnson stretching the ball out at the goal line is a no-no. And it's an alert, aware play by the South Carolina defense to knock it free. That's coachable, pretty fixable. Don't do it again. That's not a problem with the offense. The pick that Nussmeier throws at the goal line is inexcusable for a fifth-year senior quarterback to make. And that's not something you can just brush away. Well, we got down there and turned it over at the 1. No, you can't make that throw. And he knows that, but you got to do better than that. If you're going to beat Bama, if you're going to beat Texas A&M, if you're going to go to Norman and win, you can't make that throw. You probably can't make that throw on Saturday. So that is part of the offense where that's not something that you just shot yourself in the foot. You made a bad play. And then at the end of the game, I'd like it if you could knock South Carolina out of the way, 1st and goal at the 1-yard line, and get in the end zone to finish the game. Finish the game. And they couldn't do it. Now, you're not going to do anything crazy down there because it going from 7 to 10 under 3 minutes to go is a massive deal when their offense has 10 points total in the game. So you're going to be a little bit conservative there, but I'd like, in a conservative mindset, to still punch that in from the 1-yard line, and they didn't. But I sense confidence from Garrett Nussmeier in that answer. And so this was the final answer that we'll play for you, and it's talking about getting back to himself, being himself, and playing well in the second half of the season.
Leading the offense the correct way, being the guy that can orchestrate this offense into what it truly has the potential to be. And so I think that's my goal, nothing else. I've said it many times, I didn't care about awards or things like that or focus on all this individual stuff. My goal was to be the best I could for the LSU Tigers and LSU offense. And so that's where my focus is. My focus is with my teammates, my focus with my coaches and getting better and trying to continue this. At the end of the day, you can say whatever you want about us, but we're 5-1 and we got a great opportunity ahead of us. And so that's my goal, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
The last part of that bite, I feel like, is lost in this town right now. That's my opinion. That's my experience. But the last part of that bite, in my opinion, is lost in this town right now. And we talked about it a little bit the first 2 days of this week, and I understand it, but I do push back against it a little bit. I push back against the town, not Garrett. The town, the refrain is, offensive line's no good still. Offense, no good still. When they play good teams, they're going to get beat. Kelly hasn't accomplished anything. They can't beat Bama. They're not going to beat A&M. Like, this is supposed to be a championship team, and it's not. And that's the chorus in this town. And that may be proven right. It may be proven right. But I know Garrett Nussmeier's right. I'm 100% certain that Garrett Nussmeier's right. He's 5-1. He's got a great opportunity moving forward. Look around at all the teams that have losses. Georgia's not perfect this year. Oregon just lost on its home field. Bama got beat by a Florida State team that stinks. Everybody's got their flaws. And I'm not here to suggest that LSU's playing significantly better than Oregon or Bama. They're not. But they're 5-1. I know that. And they do have a huge opportunity. And I'm just kind of wired in a way to think about that in addition to the struggles that they've had offensively. Trust me, I wrote in a post-game column on LouisianaSports.net after LSU beat Florida, this offense is not good enough to do what they need to do. I'm not completely blind to that. I'm not here to tell you, hey, this team is fine. They're 5-1. They got a great defense. They'll be fine. They're going to make the playoff. I'm not here to brush that away. But I'm also not going to dismiss the fact that they're 5-1 with a great opportunity here. You telling me they can't go to Nashville and win? They can. They can go beat Vanderbilt. That's 6-1. That sets up 105,000 when A&M comes in here for a primetime game. You don't think they can win that game? You sure they can't win that game? The opportunity's there. I'm just saying. And I felt like for a guy in Garrett Nussmeier who very rarely says anything when he sits down with a microphone, he sounded to me last night to be a guy who said, yeah, I was hurt. I'm not talking about it, but I was hurt. I'm not hurt. We dominated that game against South Carolina. And we got a good chance to get better now that I'm healthy and my running back's healthy and my tight end's healthy and we're 5-1 to do something in the second half. And if it looks like it did last year in the second half, they won't do anything. But that's not certainty. What's certain is that the quarterback's getting healthier. The body's going to heal itself. He's not getting worse. And that they're 5-1. Let's see what happens. I enjoyed our chat with Garrett Nussmeier. I've got a piece up at LouisianaSports.net right now with a couple more quotes, kind of my thoughts and commentary on it as well, so you can check that out for free over at LouisianaSports.net. If you want to look for our LSU content, you can find it at Hunt on LSU, YouTube, wherever you find your podcasts. We appreciate y'all for subscribing and making that part of your day. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.